Hello everybody, it's me Ross and welcome to another edition of my Ipswich Town Football Club, and today I'm joined by Andy, who's going to take us through his town supporting life, from how he became a fan, his favourite town game and much more. Andy, thank you very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you on. How you been doing during these weird times we've been living in?
Yeah, I'm okay. Everybody's had to be really adaptable, haven't they? But hopefully the kind of future's bright for everything Ipswich and broader as well.
Definitely. And I'm interested to hear your memories, your stories of being a town fan. Of course, the first question is a standard one. How did you become a town fan?
A lot of my family are Ipswich fans. I'm originally from over the border in Essex, but a lot of Ipswich fans in the family. Started off by getting invited along to fill a season ticket holder's seat when they couldn't go, and gradually got hooked from there.
Well, it's a good sort of way to start supporting the club. Of course, a family member or, as you said, a season ticket. Can you remember your first game, the team they were playing, the result?
I can't. I was very, very young. I can't remember the exact game, but it was kind of around the sort of end of the sort of 80s, probably sort of John Duncan era. The game that I remember clearly was around 1992. We was in the Premier League. We played Blackburn at home. It was around Christmas time, I think. I think because it wasn't a school night. It was during the Christmas holidays. So I think me and my brothers were there. Blackburn were kind of a bit of a circus act at the time because they were getting loads of money and they were signing people that they didn't really have a right to sign. So it was a bit of a game. We were 1-0 down with about 10 minutes to go, I think. Boncho Gwenchev pops up with an overhead kick. Chris Kiwami gets the winner a little bit later on. So perfect kind of comeback tale. And from there on, I was well and truly hooked. Great game to see.
Yeah, definitely. And you've mentioned two players there. I don't know if Boncho Gwenchev will be top of your list as your favourite town player. That's the next question. But what a goal to witness in person. But I always let my guests have a selection of favourite town players because it's just hard to just choose one. Do you have a standout one, and do you have a few other ones?
I think I've definitely got a few, and it was a very hard one to whittle down. One of my favourite players, kind of certainly looking back, and it's probably similar with a lot of town fans, that I don't think we really recognise just how good he was when we had him, and that was Richard Wright. Breaking into the team as a teenager, he was an unbelievably good goalkeeper. Some of the saves that he used to make, every game were top class. And I think during those early years when he got into the team under George Burley, we played such an open style. If it wasn't for Richard Wright, we wouldn't have been anywhere near as successful in those early years as Burley was building what became the promotion-winning team. Because there were games where Wright kept us in it without a doubt, and a more average goalkeeper would have certainly conceded a lot more goals. And likewise, I think when he left, I think it really highlighted just how good he was as well. Because any successful team needs a great goalkeeper. And second season in the Premier League, second time around, then when it all crumbled, that was definitely one of the reasons for me why it all kind of fell apart. But my real favourite is Pablo. A lot of town fans will say the same, I'm sure, but everything about Pablo was exciting. He was one of the first Bosman transfers. We were getting this brilliant young Spaniard for free from Celta Vigo, clubs that people haven't even heard of at the time, really, in this country, Sporting Town. The style that he played, he was a proper matador on the pitch. Really exciting to watch. You sort of compare him to other players. There's shades of kind of Aguero and people like that. Obviously not to the same level, but the way that Aguero plays, everything's such tight control and some brilliant goals and some exciting memories. Obviously a fiery temperament as well, and a few red cards. But the fans really connected with him. He knew how much he was loved by the fans as well, and kind of played up to that. And it was a brilliant kind of signing. And then second time around, when Magilton brought him back to the club, that was an absolute masterstroke, because when Magilton had to rebuild that team, and kind of get fans' mindset right from, look, we've just had a team that's kind of left over from the Premier League, basically been scrapped, and now Magilton's in to rebuild it on very little money. To get Pablo in to kind of lead the line was genius, because it just got the fans on side straight away. Magilton knew that Pablo would always get the backing of the fans, and he paid us back in goals and lots more excitement.
Definitely, that's a fantastic choice. And as you said, I know that'd be a lot of people's choice for fans, but he was such a character, and I think we haven't had someone like him for a very long time. I know we've had different strikers who've scored goals, but Pablo was just a whole different level. And yeah, fantastic choice, and 2 very successful spells with us. Next question is your favourite game you've watched. Once again, I'm sure you've gone to a lot of games, so it's just hard to just choose one. But take it away.
Favourite game? Again, so difficult, watching so many Town games over the years. I think for me, there's been obviously the playoff games, not even just the year we won. They were unbelievable occasions. A team that would give absolutely everything and not necessarily get the rewards on the pitch in the years where we lost the playoff semi-finals. Obviously, kind of culminating in the year where we went up. Those the 3 games that year. The 2 Bolton games were incredible. Some amazing goals. Obviously, Sam Allardyce and his team having a meltdown as well, which just always makes me smile. Always think of that when I see Allardyce interviewed now. How he kind of had a meltdown. That was brilliant. I think one that's a little bit out there that I'll say actually was in the Premier League. I think it was either end of the sort of Christmas time of the second season, so the relegation season. We'd gone, I don't know what it was, 15, 16 games without a win. My cousin actually managed to get us some corporate tickets at White Hart Lane to watch Tottenham v Ipswich. Rocked up there thinking, oh, here we go, it's going to be another defeat. So we're sat amongst the Tottenham fans in the corporate seats, obviously trying to keep a bit of a low profile. But the stars aligned that day to kind of change our fortunes. Teddy Sheringham gets. Tottenham scored early on, I think, and then Teddy Sheringham gets sent off, which was maybe a bit harsh as well. Finidi George pops up with an equaliser, and we think, hang on a minute, there's a chance here. We're sort of sinking lower and lower in our seats amongst all these Tottenham fans who are getting more and more irate as little old Ipswich are potentially causing an upset. And then Alan Armstrong comes on in the second half and nicks a winner in about the 89th minute. And we just couldn't contain ourselves any longer. We're going mental amongst all these Tottenham fans and getting told to sit down and shut up and lots of other expletives. But we didn't care. It just felt like kind of so much relief after, who knows what really happened that season, why it all unravelled, but that felt like we were kind of back on track. And it signalled kind of an amazing run in form as well. It was like 7 wins in 8 games or something crazy. You imagine a side these days getting relegated with a spell of form like that. It just doesn't happen. And for a team to be able to produce that, it just felt like we were still alive. And sadly, it didn't turn out that way. But that was definitely one of my best games, I'd say.
Definitely, of course, winning away from home in the Premier League is definitely difficult for a team who are, fighting for their lives. So that is definitely up there as a good game to mention. You've mentioned, Gwenchev's goal against Blackburn. Up next, we're going to be talking about goals. I'm sure, once again, you've seen many goals scored, some not so good, some, belters. So your favourite Town goal of all time?
Favourite Town goal, and it's there's been millions, or not millions, but hundreds and thousands probably that I've seen over the years that I've celebrated. I was a season ticket holder for many years as well. I think seeing Alan Armstrong score in the San Siro was, it was a consolation, but it was a great kind of punctuation mark on a brilliant day out. That was a great one. Magilton's hat-trick in the playoffs was outstanding. But probably the goal that I celebrated most, and it felt like the North Stand celebrated longest, was Pablo, my man Pablo, against Coventry in, I think it was back 2010. we were going through a bit of a ropey spell of form under Roy Keane. It felt like a real transition. It didn't feel like Keane rated Pablo much at all. So, he was in and out of the team, and we had a bit of a spell of conceding late goals. We were 2-1 up at Coventry into injury time, and somehow Coventry equalised. That felt like the last kick of the game. But from somewhere, whether it was through a guilty conscience or what, the referee kind of played on for another minute or so. And Pablo scored with an unbelievable finish in front of the North Stand. Connor Wickham kind of played him in on a brilliant counter-attack to nick it in about the 96th minute. And I think there's probably only meant to be 4 minutes of added time. And that was just, the whole North Stand was just jumping up and down. It felt like minutes and minutes. But yeah, that was definitely one that I'll always remember as a favourite.
And of course, under lights, late winner, at Portman Road. Yeah. When you mentioned Pablo earlier, I was going to bring that up, but I thought, I have a feeling that could be mentioned in the goal. So I thought I'll leave that for you to discuss, but a fantastic choice. Next up is we're going to be talking about kits. Another added on question I always bring the guest is, can you remember your first Town kit that you got, and also your favourite one of all time?
Yeah, first one is also my favourite, and that was the kit we wore in the Premier League in '94-5 with the laces, the Feistons kit with the white sleeves. I still got that somewhere, not the original kit, because I certainly wouldn't get in that anymore. But I've managed to get my hands on one since, and yeah, that's an all-time favourite. It's just a classic. And it felt like we were playing in that kit for a long time as well. Whereas now, change kit every season. That felt like a real kind of part of that era with Ipswich. So yeah, that's my favourite.
I've had the answer a few times, and I sort of said to all the guests that I don't think we'll ever see that again. No. I think that is definitely a 90s thing, or just a one-off sort of thing for us to have. Yeah. But I don't think we'll see that again. But good choice. Now I've got 2 more questions. Always like to end this series on a high note, definitely because of the current situation we're in as a Town supporters. Yeah. So let's go down to the dark alley and talk about your worst Town moment. Have you got a personal one to yourself?
I have. I think worst Town moment could easily be pretty much any day of the last decade, to be honest. Seeing the club gradually erode into what it had become has just been soul destroying for every Town fan. Fortunately, we're on the rise now, but the one moment that really sticks out to me as the worst possible thing was when we had to sell Darren Ambrose. That was just yet another kick in the teeth around then. We'd had to deal with administration and relegation, but it was all right. We still had these kids that had come through the academy. We had Darren Bent, Darren Ambrose, unbelievable connection on the pitch, scoring brilliant goals, combinations, everything. So exciting to watch. And then a bid came in, and he was up the road for peanuts as well. Less than £1 million we got for him. And it just felt like we were robbed of him, and not just robbed of him, but robbed of that partnership with Bent as well. And those 2 kids could have been massive players for us for years and years. But sadly, all of those factors that combined kind of robbed us of Darren Ambrose.
Yeah, when I go back and look at stats and look at Darren Ambrose, he didn't actually play that many games for Town. When you feel like, he broke through in the Premier League season, and then when of course, then I think played a few times when we got relegated, and then was played in that one whole season. I think he only played one full season, and as you said, he got sold. So it's sort of like we never saw the best of him in a Town shirt, although he had that fantastic connection. It's just, unfortunately, that era, as you said, even Darren Bent, we could have had him for many years, but then unfortunately, we had to sell him eventually, and many other players that is in that mould where we had to sell them on, and unfortunately, is what it is. Now, let's finish off on a high note, positive stuff. Your best Town moment. Of course, I always get the same answer with the Wembley and stuff. But have you got a personal one yourself?
Yeah, I mean, Wembley is up there, but what topped that for me was that first season in the Premier League. That ride to finishing 5th was just stuff of fairy tales. the results that we picked up and the results in a real exciting and attractive way of playing as well, it's just not going to be seen again, that level of thing. Obviously Sheffield United kind of got promoted last year and had a great season, and people were talking about them, but it was nowhere near in the style that we played in that one season. And going into the last game, I think I was at the final game. We played away at Derby. Going up there and thinking, if it goes our way and results elsewhere go our way, we're in the Champions League in our first season in the Premier League. The last game of the season. It's just unbelievable. And only sort of 20 years ago as well, which makes you kind of think, wow, how far we've fallen. But that was just incredible times. And it makes me sad really when you look at young Town fans these days that have had to put up with the last 15 years, 14 years. They've not had anything that's kind of even come close to a team finishing at the top of the league, let alone the Premier League. So that's the one, and it's that right. It's not one game, but it's a period of time where it was a brilliant time to be a Town fan. I was following them. I had a season to get home. I was following them for most away games as well. When we were just turning up at grounds, just with so much confidence amongst the fan base and the players just backing it up and playing their hearts out for us. Unbelievable times.
I dread to think this season Town fans going away games and thinking, are we going to get a result at Fleetwood, or are we going to get a result against AFC Wimbledon? But hopefully we can put that at the back of our mind and the future is bright. Andy, anything else you'd like to add as part of the video?
Yeah, sorry, just the only thing on that is our new owners. I think if we'd have written down a list of criteria what we would want for a perfect change from Marcus Evans, our American owners are ticking every single box. It almost seems too good to be true at this stage, but if they achieve 50% of the things that we think they can achieve, then we are going places again, and it's a brilliant time to be a Town fan, and we certainly deserve it after the last 14 years.
Well, hopefully we'll have a character like Pablo again. Hopefully we'll sign someone like that. And definitely if they're going to bring out the recruitment, be able to bring in better players, and we'll have to wait and see on that. But Andy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for getting involved. And everyone who's watching, let us know in the comments down below your thoughts on Andy's memories. And is Pablo your favourite player too? I'm sure a lot of Town fans are going to be like that. But Andy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks a lot.